Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so yeah, like Tejas was saying, I also work at Stately AI with David, and this is my first official talk, so I'm really grateful that you're all here. We're going to talk about state machines and your mental health. First, I'm going to tell you about a recent event. Last month, we hosted a hackathon in Orlando, Florida, and that's where I'm from. That's where I traveled from. And this hackathon I felt like it was a success. It was so much fun. We had a full day event where around 40-something people attended, and they had no prior knowledge of what state machines are. And they were able to come up with really fun, unique ideas and built applications that worked by the end of the day, and they demoed it to compete for different prizes. And one of the cool applications that they built was Tetris. And when I say it was cool, it's because as you're playing Tetris, you can see the state machine on the same screen, just flowing through the different logic of how Tetris works. And so I want to share with you what the first and second place winners created. And first place built an issue management component for GitHub to sync the comments and issues alongside, and you can create those issues and modify them in a React app where it just syncs with GitHub and you can see the issues right next to it, like happened live. Second place winner created a application to automate this audio input device that looks really complicated. So what they ended up doing was they translated the manual for all those different functions of those buttons, and they were able to use a state machine to map out what they wanted to customize those buttons to do. So instead of manually pushing the buttons and inputting the audio sounds that they want to produce music, they could automate that using state machines. And so hackathon seems so much fun, right? By the end of the day, you learn that you can create a full working application. And this is something that we should probably do every day at work, right? That seems like a good idea. You get together with a team or you work with your current team, you push out different features and you can finish a whole working application, right? Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. My heart's still racing. Thank you. Thank you. So, yeah, sure, hackathons seem like a great idea. You should totally try it every day because we know that we are capable of pushing out cool features and finishing up a whole working application. But in reality, that is not something that you should do. And you will, I guarantee you, if you treat every day like a hackathon, you will experience burnout. And this is any stage of burnout is harmful to your brain and to your mental health. So sure, hackathons might seem fun, but it's not something that we should put our bodies and our mind through every single day, just because we know that we're capable. So if these people, going back to state machines, if these people are able to learn about state machines in a full day and they're able to build an application from it, I want to get you all familiar with what state machines are, because when I first learned about them, I thought they were really intimidating. Every machine and every process starts at an initial state. An initial state can be represented by a circle with an arrow extending from it, pointing to the initial state. I like to think my initial state of my brain is awake. Now we have finite states. Finite states are where you can only be in one state at a time. So my brain is either asleep or awake. And I'd like to say my initial state of my brain is awake because I have insomnia, so I'm usually just awake most of the time. You'll never find me asleep for long. Next, we have events and transitions. So events are the text on the arrows, and those arrows that you see are called transitions. To transition from awake to asleep, the event would be exhaustion. So while I'm in the asleep state, when my alarm, in the event that my alarm goes off, I will transition to awake. Next, we have effects. Effects are things that happen. So Oh, I forgot the next slide. Effects are things that happen. So in the event that I experience exhaustion and I am awake, I will transition to a sleep, and the effect of me falling asleep is that my heart rate will decrease. And while I'm asleep and my alarm goes off and I transition from asleep to awake and I'm just like abruptly shaken and like awaken, I feel my heart rate increasing. It's not a really fun feeling. Next, we have guarded transitions, right? These transitions only happen if the condition is true. So let's say I'm asleep. This happened to me this morning. My alarm went off. I was in a deep sleep where I didn't hear the first alarm. Good thing I sent like 3 alarms. But I was in a deep sleep where I didn't transition to awake because it wasn't loud enough for me. I didn't hear it. So eventually, by like the second alarm, I was able to wake up because I fell out of that deep sleep and I transitioned into awake. And these guarded transitions can be represented by the event with brackets of the effect of the guarded of the guard. All right, we learned about initial states, finite states, guarded transitions, and effects. Next, we have compound states. Compound states contain nested states. I know that sounds a little bit confusing, so an easier way to remember this is that there are parent and child states within compound states. So when you are asleep, the child state within that is that your brain goes through 2 different cycles. One is called NREM, which is non-rapid eye movement, and the next cycle is REM. Within NREM, you also have child states, so this is also a compound state. Within NREM, you start off at the initial state. So stage 1 of NREM is where your body falls asleep faster than your brain. So you are easily awakened at this time. And it takes up to 7 minutes before you transition into the second state of NREM. But when you do reach the second state of NREM, your brain catches up to your body and you fall into a deeper sleep. So it is harder for you to wake up from. And this usually takes an average of 15 to 24 minutes. The next state of NREM, before you transition out of it, is the third one. I don't know if there's an actual name for it, but I just call it the third state. This is a really deep sleep that you fall in, and if you are awakened in the third state of NREM, you actually feel refreshed, which is why some people say, like, oh, take a power nap. It's 20 to 30 minutes. This is very useful short term. I don't recommend you doing this long term because it is damaging to your body and your brain. How? It's because you're basically tricking your brain into thinking that you receive some type of rest and you're recovered, but you're only recovered temporarily and your body is still drained from whatever activities that you did yesterday or a couple hours before you did sleep. So now that we went through the 3 states of NREM, you transition into REM. The REM cycle, which is rapid eye movement, is very, very essential to your sleep cycle because this is where you dream and this is where your brain, it doesn't shut down, but it works at the most minimum capacity. And what I mean by that is that it forces your body to become immobilized. So you feel slightly paralyzed and your heart rate and your breathing are completely like slowed down to the lowest level that it can possibly be. And that's to minimize the amount of energy that you're burning while you're in REM. Now, a full sleep cycle from NREM to REM takes about 90 minutes. Sometimes it takes longer. It takes up to 120 minutes. I want to remind you that a full night's rest, on average, is suggested to be 8 hours. I don't know if you sleep 8 hours. I certainly don't. It's recommended, but it doesn't mean that if you can't do it, it's okay. Don't stress about it. I want to remind you that every single time you do a complete cycle, so let's say 90 minutes of this whole NREM to REM and back, the more cycles that you experience when you sleep, the better you will feel the next day. Okay, so we learned about initial states, finite states, compound states, guarded transitions. Next, we have parallel states. This is one of my favorite states to describe. So Parallel states are a combination of states. Within my brain, or within all of our brains, we all experience sleep inertia when we wake up. And this is something that I recently discovered because I thought, when I wake up, I'm like super productive and I can take on the world. But in reality, it takes up to 30 minutes to get out of sleep inertia. When we wake up, our body's awake and we feel alive, but our brain actually takes time to start activating all the different lobes that help us get through life and get through our daily routines. So parallel states are represented by the dashed border of the states. So basically, you're in a combination of states at the same time, and your brain is functioning at different rates at multiple parts at the same time. I know that sounds confusing. So one of my favorite examples is ordering a donut. If you haven't met me before, I absolutely love donuts. Some people say that I have an obsession, but I tend to think I'm just a donut connoisseur. So let's say you enter a donut shop, right? You want to pick a donut, but oh my God, there's so many things on the menu. You have a vanilla cake, raspberry frosting, cookie crumble donut, and then you have a banana flavored glaze donut with blueberry sprinkle frosting, and then you have what is that? Chocolate Oreo donut that is croissant dough, so it's actually a cronut, and you have vanilla frosting with Oreo toppings. I wouldn't know what to pick at first because there's so many different options, right? So with parallel states, you can start thinking about the process of ordering a donut or customizing your own as okay, what type of dough do I want? Do I want glazed or not? Do I want toppings? If I do, sprinkles, Oreos, cereal, you can pick them at the same time. So my ideal donut is a yeast, strawberry glazed, custard filling, no topping donut. I know that sounds really complicated, but some people like to order more toppings. I think that's pretty simple enough. Okay, now that we learned about what parallel states are, I'm going to talk to you about history states. So I'm going to simulate this in our stately studio. Did it show up? Perfect. So this is our stately studio. This is where you can interact with your state machine, add in different types of logic, drag and drop. It's really user-friendly. Try it out if you'd like at stately.ai. I'm going to simulate this and zoom in for you so that you see my donut machine. Is it? It's frozen. Okay. Hold on, it's a little frozen on my end. Okay, so you order your donut. Mine is I forgot what I said, a yeast dough with strawberry glaze, no toppings, and custard filling. My absolute favorite donut. Sometimes I try cake dough, and it's not as appetizing. Croissant dough is a little bit chewy, but we're not going to get into the different types of dough. We're going to pick our donut, which is the yeast strawberry glazed custard filling. Once we pick that donut, now we're in the packaged donut state where they package it for you and hand it off to you. When you get handed the donut, you receive it. And I'm trying to move this machine, but it's lagging. So there we go. So let's say you receive your donut and you're not hungry yet, so you're in the state of staring at this donut and your phone rings. Okay, pick it up. They're trying to sell me insurance. I don't need insurance. I already have it. So I hang up the phone. I'm back in the state where I was before. That's where now I'm hungry. So I went from staring at my donut to now I'm eating the donut. And then my sister calls me, and it's like, what do you want? I'm trying to eat my donut. And she's just like, oh, I don't know. I think I butt called you. I butt dialed you. Sorry. So I hang up the phone, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to start eating my donut. And then let's say the phone rings again. I haven't finished my donut yet. I'm hangry at this point. Hangry is hungry and angry, parallel states. So I pick up the phone, and I'm like, I'm busy, hang up. I don't even need the context. I don't care. We're back in the history state of me eating that donut, right? It's pretty cool. History states are fun. They're important, but they're not necessary unless it's something that you want to represent in your application. So Now that I'm finished eating the donut, I can pick up the phone whenever I want, but I probably won't. I'll just turn it off at this point because people like to call me when I'm in the middle of doing something. So just don't even answer the phone anymore. All right. Next, we're going to talk about how the history state is when you think about it with how our brain functions. History state, you can think about it like memory. So memory memory functions within our frontal lobe and the temporal lobe, okay? And this is important because when you sleep, all these different lobes in your brain actually get to rest, and they shut down at different parts of like your sleep cycle. But eventually, you rest and you recover, and then you can work at max capacity when you wake up. The temporal lobe is really important, and that's like behind your eyes. That's located behind your eyes. The temporal lobe is where your short-term memory takes place. Okay, so in case you want to know more about brain functionality, I come find me. I'll talk to you all about your brain. Okay, we learned about parallel states and we saw how history state works. Now we're going to talk about the final state. The final state is represented by a double border square or rectangle, whatever shape that you prefer, on the final state of the process. And this is usually at the end of your process. It's the last state that you get to, and then your program is finished, or maybe your tests are done. Oh, I forgot. In the state that I have finished eating my donut, that is the final state of the donut. It's gone forever. That's why you have an empty box. So you can choose to feel sad, or you can choose to feel happy that you finally got to eat your donut. Okay, we learned about all the different terms that it takes to build a state machine. So now I want to talk to you about your brain. A very common misconception is that people like to put stress and burnout together, but I want to educate you on how they are completely two different things. Stress is where you feel overwhelmed. It's where your heart rate increases when you start thinking about all the things that you have to do and take on for the day or the week, and in your life, really. And all your responsibilities, you feel like there's not enough hours in your day to complete them. And stress is something that we all experience. It's completely normal. If you don't experience stress, I think you're at a point where you just kind of feel numb. But we'll get to that. I promise you, we'll get to that. Burnout is where you actually do feel numb. You have no motivation. You feel like you can't get out of bed. You feel like, okay, what am I capable of? You become like, you get into the state of like imposter syndrome where it's like, can I actually do these things that I was hired to do? Like, and it's all work related. Stress is life related, and it can get piled onto work. But burnout specifically is related to work and the tasks that you're doing at work and your relationship with your coworkers. So I work at a startup. There's 9 of us. We wear a lot of hats. Yes, we do have a heavy workload, and yes, it's very fun. But there are times where it's so fast-paced that we don't get rewarded for the things that we complete, or like the 3 blog posts that we put out in like a week, or it's like you get to a point where you're just like, okay, are the things that I'm doing matter? And that's when you start realizing like, oh shoot, I'm starting to feel burnt out, and that's not healthy. There is a psychologist. He's a German-born American psychologist who recently passed, but he wrote a lot of fantastic articles and blogs, and even a book about the 12 different states of burnout. And yes, there are 12 different states of burnout. But today I'm going to talk to you about the most common 5 states. First, you're going to go through this honeymoon phase where you're so excited about like this new job or this new position or this new team you're in. And you just love you have so many ideas and you love all the tasks you're about to take on, and you're so passionate, right? This honeymoon phase creates like a high satisfaction of like what you're about to accomplish. And that's the first state of burnout, because what you end up doing is you start saying yes to everything that needs to be done. And like, oh, I'll do this, oh, I'll do that. Like, yeah, of course I can write 3 blog posts in a week. But after a while, you'll realize that you said yes to too many things. And that's where you get to the second state of burnout. That is the onset of stress. You start stressing because you're like, oh, shoot, 3 blog posts a week is actually not, it's actually hard. Like, I have to start being more creative with my words. And so the onset of stress makes you become less optimistic, and you reach a point where you can't sleep as well, or maybe you're concerned, like, am I going to really complete this by the end of the cycle? And you start doubting yourself. Then you get to the third state of burnout. That is called chronic stress, where you literally can't sleep at night because all you can think about is work, and then you can't eat, you lose your appetite, like you just don't take care of yourself anymore. And this level of stress leads you into becoming an imposter. Like what I said earlier with burnout, you start thinking like, okay, I got hired to do all these things. I was capable of it. Why can't I do it anymore? Oh my gosh, I'm an idiot. I can't get these things done. It's not realistic anymore. Then you actually reach burnout. Burnout is a very hard place to get out of, I will say. So when you are in the burnout state, it's really hard to cope with stress. You can't differentiate between the two, and you just kind of become unmotivated. You lose all of your physical energy to get things done, and then if it gets bad enough, you will transition into the last state of burnout, which is habitual burnout. And that's where you can't get out of bed and you can't find the reason of like why you're here. And it can get pretty dark. And trust me, there are so many resources online in case you don't feel like you can seek help, or maybe right now you don't feel like it's a good time or you have no motivation to. It is really hard to transition out of it. But I do want to share with you some brain hacks that I use. And you can remember them as dose. Dose are the 4 main happy chemicals or neurotransmitters that our brain releases to temporarily feel better in the moment. DOSE stands for dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. And I have my handy-dandy notes. So I'm going to help you come up with fun little activities to temporarily get you out of this mood or this rut that you might think you're in when you recognize that, okay, I'm starting to feel like burnt out, like I'm starting to not be able to perform at my best at work. We're going to start with dopamine. Dopamine, we treat them like rewards. And so a simple practice that I try to do, and you don't have to do this every day. I try to do this at least once a week to start, and let's say every Wednesday. You put some time aside to make an effort to write 3 things that you are grateful for in that moment. It's hard to do every day. I try to do it. And I usually say 3 things because the first thing, you're kind of just guessing, like, okay, I'm grateful for like a good hair day. The second thing that you put down, you kind of lie because you're like, okay, what else am I grateful for? Like these comfy shoes that I'm walking in? Sure. But by the third thing, you are completely honest with yourself. You're like, okay, I'm actually really grateful to be here right now at AgentConf. Thank you. See, I just released some dopamine because I was honest about that. And so it doesn't end here. You write those 3 things down that you're grateful for, and then you say them out loud. Because once you say it out loud, you actually convince yourself and start believing it. It's a very powerful thing. But another thing, bonus points if you can do this, is stay in front of a mirror. Look at yourself and read out these things one at a time that you're grateful for, and it will actually help your brain release that dopamine to feel better in that moment. Next, we have oxytocin. Oxytocin's like a really warm, fuzzy, loving feeling, like chemical that makes you just want to like smile and blush. So if you're able to do this and if you're comfortable to release oxytocin in the moment, you just kind of like wrap your arms around your shoulders and like squeeze for like 3 seconds, and then take a deep breath and you're like, okay, I do feel loved. I do feel appreciated. And I'll be honest, at first this was kind of weird for me, like hugging myself, Not a big fan. So in the case that you don't like to receive hugs or hug yourself, a fun little trick is to go on YouTube and look up adorable kitten or puppy videos, okay? Watch them for 1 or 2 minutes, and then bam, oxytocin releases in your brain, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I can get work done now. I feel a lot better. We're gonna skip serotonin and go to endorphins, or endorphins, however you pronounce that. Endorphins are a natural pain reliever. And so when you release endorphins, you do feel less cortisol levels and less stress temporarily. And the reason why we do these little activities is so we get out of this state that we're in, that like we feel stuck and that we're about to get into a worse state of burnout. And it helps us remind us that we are valuable, we are capable of the things we do. One trick that you can do with releasing endorphins is, this is like a delay trick, but I absolutely love this because I like donuts and sweets. Eat some dark chocolate. The higher concentrate of cacao, the better. But when your body starts digesting that dark chocolate, it takes about 15 minutes if you're on an empty stomach, maybe longer if you do have food in your stomach already. But dark chocolate is a really good way, and other foods, I don't have the list in front of me. Other foods can actually affect your mood that contain cacao or can help you release those endorphins. But one quick way to do, oh shoot, I'm not even in the full screen. One quick way to do an exercise to release endorphins is just to like move, to shake. Like even if you're sitting, you can just shake your shoulders and like shake your head. And then you'll like automatically feel a little bit better. But you have to mean it. Like you literally have to like shake, okay? You can get up, you can do jumping jacks, you can do like a full 1 minute workout if you're capable of that. I can't do that. But like, we can do what Kent did and do like the air squats, 12 air squats, and like bam, release of endorphins. You feel a little bit better. You feel at ease. Your shoulders are less like tight and heavy. Okay. Now we're going to talk about serotonin. This is one of my favorite chemicals to be released in the brain because it does lighten your mood up. Even if it's temporary, it's to me, it like lightens my mood up for a longer period of time because what we're going to end up doing is laughing together. And I want you all to join me if you'd like. To release serotonin, one fun thing that you can do is to trick yourself into laughing. And here's a fun fact. Your body, your physical body, cannot tell the difference between a real laugh and a fake laugh. So when you start mimicking laughter, eventually your body will start laughing with you because it thinks you're really laughing. So one thing that we're going to do is to count to 10 in laughs. And I'm assuming that you all laugh, right? We go like, haha, or something. Yeah, so let's try to do that. We're going to start with 1, I'm going to count to 2, and then we'll proceed to 10. We're going to go with ha, 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 faster, ha, 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 I can't. It's really hard to get to 10. There we go, we just released some serotonin. Woo! You did it! Don't we feel so much better? Like, you just released some serotonin, and it's like, bam, wow, I'm having a great day. I want to remind you that you are not a machine. Sure, like your brain can be mapped out like a machine with all the logic that's going on, but why is my picture not loading? It's a picture, it's a GIF of like a robot eating donuts, okay? You are not a machine. And the reason why I see this is that, yes, you may be capable of doing all these things in one day or a week, and yes, you are so skilled that you can ship out a product or features by the end of the day every day, but that doesn't mean that you have to do it. You have a choice. Once you are aware of the mental state that you're in and what you're capable of, then you start putting boundaries down. Then you start saying like, no, I can't take on this task right now. And it doesn't have to be a forever no. It could be like, okay, yes, I'd love to help you, but like with a teammate, yes, I'd like to help you, but this is not something that I can take on right now. Let me complete my tasks, and then maybe we'll revisit this next cycle if you still need help. So when you put those boundaries down, you become more kind to yourself. You live a less stress life. And so that's what I want to remind you to do. Try to do one of these 4 hacks, or maybe try even all of them. Remember DOSE, okay? Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. Try to remember some of these brain hacks to help you temporarily get out of this stuck mood or stress state that you're in, so then you don't unexpectedly transition into burnout or a worse state of burnout.